Okay, you guys are good to go.
Thank you. Okay, minutes.
I don't see anybody else on Zoom.
No,
Steve, did you have any comments about the minutes?
neither did I. Everything looked appropriate for me.
Two.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll motion to accept the minutes as presented here. That's the minutes of where is it? August 22nd. Second.
All those in favor of approving the
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. So the second item on the agenda is discussion of TAF goals, suggestions, and concerns. Do we have any specifics to that, or just kind of an open roundtable discussion?
Yeah, I think it's an open forum, that if there's things that we wanted to discuss from that have kind of come up during the last cycle, this is an opportunity to talk about these things as possible things to improve upon or change.
Okay. Well, I have a bunch, so I'll throw them in. Is anyone familiar with Tillamook County's dashboard of how they do their lodging tax projects? So if you just Google, and I was going to bring the link, but if you just Google Tillamook County lodging tax projects, and it'll take you to their county website, and they list all of the project. Now, they do it countywide, different than we're just a city, obviously. And but it is the lodging tax dollars that are restricted just like ours. And they'll do projects, everything from public restrooms to boat launches, to public parks, to advertising, and all the little chambers of commerce get some money and so forth. But it's really a great way to kind of show the community, like, that's what the committee is doing. And that's where your money is going and that kind of thing. And I bring that up because I think it would be interesting if we had something similar to that. Because people are always like, well, they get all this lodging money and where does it go? And, you know, and so forth. And from a comparable source, I thought it was pretty interesting that the way they do it.
Just the restricted funds, 70%, not the city.
Yeah. So Tillamook, they have a county tax more than a city. Each city probably has their own too, like Manzanita versus Tillamook, but the county tax is like 8%. So so the county does where in Clatsop County, it's still 8% as well, but most of the tax is city driven. But just that mechanism that they use, that dashboard, so you could say that, oh, X amount of dollars went to the new sign project, and here's who's doing that project, and so forth. So when people are like, oh, the city's wasting all this money, they can kind of see where these things go.
I pulled it up, so it says like project lead, project, the year the award was made, the amount, and then where it is in progress completed.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Cool.
They-
That would be easy to do, just looking at, because I pulled it up too. That grid like that would be easy to do on a web page because we do it for public notices.
Yeah,
The same.
it's the same.
Same
Yeah.
type of thing. And you can add as much detail as you want to, like where they are, where we are in our quarterlies or whatever. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think that is something that this committee, if you read the ordinance that started when this tax was invoked in about 12 years ago or so,
Longer than that.
longer than that. I mean, it was 2008, 9, 10, somewhere right in there. And, you know, it was for tourism and arts and to focus on the off season. And I think all those things have changed. I think it's still very arts focused, but we've done some projects that are not arts focused and they're more community focused. Clutchie Creek being the big one over the last couple of years. And if you look at what Tillamook County does, you know, they have some really interesting projects that's beneficial to wherever they happen to be doing it. And I think, you know, when we talk about you know, on average, we have 400 and some odd $1,000 in the fund. You know, could we use that to, you know, I don't know, do something in the city that improves the city, like they do, and not necessarily a festival or a thing. And then we've,
And it's in improving the product. rather
exactly,
than-
that's what Jim used to always say, is improving the product. And so I guess I'm leading with all that because I would be very interested in having a discussion of how do we, you know, change things or go about, not that we're going to do it, but, you know, would there be interest in using these funds for improving the product more so than saying, having a weekend, you know, something that brings people to town? Because,
Find that it's both.
yeah, or both, or both. And if you look at the Tillamook, like, for example, ever since I've been on this committee, we've given funding to the Cannon Beach Arts Associate, you know, the gallery and the coaster, and, you know, there are a couple other ones that are just almost like no-brainers. And then Tillamook, they have their annual award. I mean, they don't even have to jump through all the hoops. It's like, we agreed for this for X amount of time and you're just gonna get it. And it just seems to make sense. And then there'll be some for the festivals and things like that. And then there's some that could be used to do whatever the improving the project happens to be, whether it be parks or whatever. But if you look at the ROI, and we're always talking about heads and beds, there's some of these things that we fund that probably don't really make financial sense to do.
Well, and Bruce came to us and said, you guys should just give up on the heads and beds because none of what we do is defendable for the most part,
Totally.
the last time. So
And in that time, things have changed. I mean, pretty much every weekend year round is busy, weather dependent.
and the off season is very, very short now.
Yeah. And so I don't know how, and I hate, because I feel like I'm picking on it, because I think the event is great. But the first weekend of September is the cottage tours and they get X amount of dollars to do that. And relooking at. Question is, would it make sense to look at how we're spending the community funds and maybe restructure the charter to say, hey, we broaden the scope to do things that are not just festivals or events.
Do you feel like the charter doesn't say, because remember when we suggested doing the music thing,
Bandstand.
the bandstand thing? I mean, we kind of brought it up as a, hey, can we suggest this to city council? And then that's when they said, oh, Parks will take that over. That makes sense. And then that would.
There's some gray areas, some vague areas. And I remember the time that we agreed on funding Calucci Creek is, well, it does bring people to town and we justified it
Yeah.
that way. I guess where I'm coming from with this is there's so much concern about, are we spending the restricted funds in accordance to the state law? You know, and Tillamook County seems to be okay with doing it on a boat ramp, you know,
Yeah.
and public restrooms. And, you know, I know that we have a need for public restrooms in town and, you know, with this money be better spent doing that than some festival in the middle of March,
Right.
you know, kind of thing. And so I don't know if it needs to be changed, but the way we operate it as a commission, you know,
Because nobody's going to come to us and say, hey, we want to expand the public restrooms here in Midtown. Can we use your money to do that? It would have to be us saying, and we'd like to put away $150,000 to expand the restrooms here in Midtown.
yeah. And otherwise it comes out of non-restricted funds, which, as you know, we're all community members and, you know, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but why wouldn't you want to use this money, you know, if you could? And as opposed to taking it out of the general fund.
Right.
So,
You want me to read what your powers and duties are in the charter?
Sure.
So it is develop rules and procedures regulating the distribution of tourism and arts fund which is comprised of 70% of the 1% lodging tax increase effective July 1, 2010, so that the distribution and application of this fund are in accordance with ORS 320, such that the funds must be dedicated to tourism and tourism-related facilities. Such rules and procedures shall be approved by council, that kind of stuff. But that's the direction in the code.
Yeah.
So it is,
Bathrooms are totally in line
Yeah.
with that.
I mean,
And yeah, I agree with that. Some people are like, well, no, it's not a tourism related facility. Like how many locals do you see going in and out of that?
Well,
That's part of the problem, that the locals know how disgusting they are.
Yeah, that is.
They're prison bathrooms down there. I mean, I don't use them. I almost, ate crap in there one year
Yeah.
falling.
So, do we like as a committee say, well, let's keep 30% for some kind of thing that might come up? Or do we have to have somebody come to us? Or, does the public works say, hey, we have this project that's very tourism related. Could we use some of the TAC funds for that? I don't know how, the bandstand one was a perfect example of, I was kind of miffed by that because I'm like, we have these funds here that are restricted that can be used for that. And look how great it's been this summer,
Yeah.
used all the time. But we took it out of Parks Committee. Now Parks can't do something with what was there in their budget because they did that. So. Anyway,
well, and it says, it talks about how we're gonna monitor the tourism and arts funds, check and make sure they're compliant. And then once you've made your final decisions of how to spend the TAP funds, the information is presented to council for review and approval. So you could present this much for TAP and this much for something else. I mean, it definitely, the way that code reads looks like it's something you can do. We can always run it by Ashley too to make sure before we get to that point,
Sure.
but.
It's almost a question for Bruce and Karen to say, because can you think of something other than, I know you can't use it on roads, because didn't Lincoln City try that?
it was Bend.
Got turned down. Bend tried.
Bend got fined, but they flat out
They knew what they were,
did to repair their road.
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading through here and it's like trailheads expansion, public dock conversion, emergency response planning. There was Cape Mears overflow parking lot.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, there's,
careful where you go with that.
yeah, that could be a little dicey.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then and then it'll say the project or like Tillamook County Pioneer Museum, annual distribution, 150,000. So that's just a done deal.
They just get it. And I could,
They had coach.
foresee like the Coaster Theater just getting X amount every year or whatever, the committee approved. But I thought that was a good example and that's why I bring it up. I know people have approached me on the streets and, one is some local parents in town. They're like, hey, how would we go about getting the skate park covered?
Oh,
And like if you go to Lincoln Cities, theirs is, and you can use it year round and you could even cover a tennis court, and well, what does that cost? $250,000. And how do you get that? Does it come from a parks fund or, where those kinds of things? I'm sure everyone, the public restrooms is a good example. I think Whale Park could use a little, sprucing up and things like that, which, they're not all parks. A lot of my examples come from, park related
Yeah.
things, but, again, like Calucci Creek was a good example. I happen to be behind that one or not behind, I was in favor of that. So anyway, just-
eventually there'll come a time when aren't they they're trying to push through a trail that will go from Clutchie Trailhead to Cannon Beach. Weren't they gonna try? I mean, I assume they're gonna come back to us for funds for that because I thought they were gonna try to do that somewhere in the future,
that was like their next generation
Yeah.
plan to do that.
which God, that'd be fabulous.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
I mean, if we're talking, because every meeting in the 4 some odd years that I've been on this committee, we've always talked about the nonprofits that are coming to us with their ideas, but we've never really taken the time to sit down and talk to each other about things,
except for the band.
except for that meeting with the band stand, So anyway, that's-
I almost would like to ask Bruce and Karen, given what you just said, because I would say, yeah, let's do the restrooms, but I don't know if is that the top of their priority list? that could be tourism related, or because maybe we're just missing something. I only see what's in my bubble.
Yeah,
And especially during the summer, when it's like, I do have a bubble and barely get out of it in the summer. You know, I wonder, do they have something else that's like, oh my God, we could really use, well, I mean, like skate park, yeah, that would be more important than, I can't imagine that would be more important, but that would cover the skate park than to do the bathrooms. I got no way of knowing what's on their priority list and their wish list.
yeah,
Well, and that's also not necessarily a pulse of the whole community too, because
Oh,
there's,
of course.
I think that that would be really valuable to reach out to all the, you know, put it in a newsletter or something, like, do you have any tourism related ideas? Because I've said for years that we should have wayfinding signs. And if I'm not on the committee, you know, I'm not gonna present that idea, or, you know, other people probably might not have that same idea, but I think that would be a huge value to a lot of people. So I think there's, everybody in the community has a thought
totally.
could definitely benefit from
Yeah.
funding like this.
Yep.
And,
The restroom side of things, we do have $250,000 budgeted this year
yeah,
for the restroom rebuild. So I don't know how.
There is a rebuild happening on this one?
Well, that's what we have in the budget to start it.
Oh.
And so I think we have like a really rough schematic design from Tolovana, I think is what all we had. It wasn't like a whole done thing. So I don't know how far that 250 would go,
Gotcha.
but it's definitely something they're working towards. So
yeah.
And it's this one, not the Tolovana one?
yeah, Midtown.
Midtown.
They have a design for a two-story one. It's pretty cool.
It'd be nice. I always see, well, there's always a line for the ladies' room and
Yeah.
always, so.
Does it have showers and lockers?
Yeah, window. Get all those people coming off the beach.
Oh, that's a Walker's a good revenue source.
I think the Wayfarer would appreciate that, because the line of sand that goes in the door to the bathroom and back out.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, to your point, maybe it makes sense to have Stephen do a little article for the Gazette and request feedback and just set up some email. Maybe there's an email that could be set up on Gmail, and maybe, I don't know, for the government part, I don't know if it has to be set up officially like that, or could there just be a Gmail account that people could, hey, give us your ideas.
Yeah, we couldn't do it that way. We would have to do it city sanction.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely can do something like that. I was typing as talking. We could do, if that's something we want to move forward with, we can definitely.
I
do
like
it.
that idea.
Or maybe the chamber can help corral
That's true.
ideas.
That's true.
Yeah.
Could be a joint chamber and chamber and TAC fund thing.
I wouldn't want people to think we were taking money out of the chamber section though.
Yeah, I know, that's the only thing
Yeah.
that's concerning about adding it to the chamber, adding the chamber in.
But we can advertise to the chamber newsletter if we did
Yes,
something.
true.
Yeah.
It'd be real interesting to see what the response is.
You know, out of the 1,200 or however many residents in town are officially, you know, I would bet a very high percentage have no idea what this money goes towards,
Absolutely.
you know,
Agree with
and
you.
how much it is and
Agree.
how it could be used and can't be used and so forth. So,
I think just, you know, transparency.
mhm. And that's where I found the Tillamook thing being so great
Yeah.
was I'm gonna have nothing to do with it. I'm like checking out all their projects and getting ideas and stuff. So, anyway,
So Rusty, how hard, we can set up a page for the a TLT page when we put where our funding, how much received and how much, where the funding is going. That would be easy, right?
You could do that, right? No problem.
Well, I think that's something good to do, because that's something that we could easily do, that page similar to what they had.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that and then start working on the rest of it. We can talk, do you want me to talk to Bruce and Ashley to make sure that we're not, you know, that's good, we can put feelers out there for where would you like to see to.
Yeah, and then you can point them to what Tillamook has done and say, we want to do something like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Ashley.
So let me understand the next steps are we're gonna work on a dashboard. And we're also going to talk to Bruce and city attorney about the legality of using the TAC funds for other betterment projects. Is that what I'm hearing as the immediate next steps? And then based talking to the public, or let's do kind of asking the public to give us their ideas on projects that they see could be funded.
Yes.
I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
And the timing's perfect because we're getting ready to start next year's things.
Yeah.
This is a great time to get all the legwork done. and-
Yeah,
I think we're all seeing the success of the electrical upgrade in the band shell and realizing we have the ability to make a difference in the betterment of the community in a variety of different ways. Certain costs.
right.
Yeah. And I don't know who paid for the pickleball nets and all of that, but I see more people using those courts now than,
I hadn't played in 30 years.
Yeah.
Now I just rode
Yeah.
my bike past and there were two different groups out there.
so that kind of thing. You know.
Great when, so the bathrooms are a bad example for making the product better, but
We take them wherever we go and we hunt, One
Right.
gal yesterday was like, that was the first thing I did was figured out there've got to be pickleball courts. And I said, well, they're new. But they were jazzed.
cool.
You know, I imagine not everyone has read all, 200 pages of ORS 320. But there's a lot of verbiage towards promotion there, but there's just as much towards facilities and so forth. And I think, navigating that for the betterment of the community. And so we're not so hung up on, well, we've just got to promote, because there's a contingency out there that doesn't want any promotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we have weekends like we did, and we're just gonna always have in the summer, but but then other businesses might feel different, like we do need people here.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a segment of the population that is saying enough is enough. And, spend some of that money looking at locals and helping locals as you're helping tourists. I was thinking of more trash cans, more trash cans along the beach helps tourists, but it also helps the locals that live in those neighborhoods. And then they don't have bags of trash dropped in their yards.
Yeah,
And that was a big topic a couple weeks ago or last month on the coffee.
That was Corgi Day.
Yeah, well, I think it was after Corgi Day, but I think they talked about that at the coffee with counselors.
Yeah, I guess they did. I think I did see that.
Yeah. Which, it seems like there's definite certain sections. Presidential sounded like they really were advocating for more through there, I think.
Yeah, I think on the beachfront there's
Yeah.
3 of the whole presidentials.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
3?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
one on First, there's one kind of about Jefferson-ish or just past that,
yeah, there's
Barbara Gray's old house.
one on Harrison.
And then when you get to the surf stand,
And I don't know who the local was, but she was saying she's patrolling several times a day, picking them up.
And then there's a list of future garbage cans. And so they actually have created a list and they're having, because, the enclosures have to look the same.
Yeah.
They're being built.
Yeah.
So there will be more.
Gotcha. Okay, good to
who
know.
comes up with the catchy phrases on top? Really?
Yeah.
Always
I
wondered.
don't know. As far as I know, it's Kurt.
It's Kirk.
Yeah, I never knew.
This money could be spent to expand how often it's picked up in the summer. The company, I don't know if it could or not, but I know that I see that, I know that truck. And so I see how often they pass by my shop in the summer because there's one, there's 2 of them down here, I think at the Wayfair, and we have one on the corner here. And it's twice a day is what I see. And oftentimes that's definitely not enough, especially July and August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's they're already overflowing by the time he shows up at 5 and it's like, ooh. That was close.
Labor Day a few years ago, the ones down here were just overflowing. And
COVID.
I asked a city work, one of the maintenance guys, and he said, oh, they don't come till 10. And that was from the whole night.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
It's just a bad look.
yeah.
So we spend like this year, the budget for the janitorial services, so that's all the porters, the garbage cans, cleaning the restrooms.
Yeah.
They clean City Hall and PD as well, which that's a light one. It's $162,000 in the budget for this year, just for those services.
Not to mention 70,000 for toilet paper.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, don't forget the
That's
toilet.
what's paid by.
You know, and so
Start getting one ply then.
hey, this is a nice town. Yeah. There's some things we can afford. But yes, and so the, like Ben got sued because they did their roads and stuff. But I think there's ways that, and attorneys will tell you one thing and so forth, but there's ways that you can prove that this is for tourism.
Yeah. I think anything having to do with the bathrooms is tourism. I've been in a local bathroom like twice in my life.
Yeah,
Why would I go to
yeah,
out hiking around? Too bad we can't do like Europe where you 50 cent euro and go in and the bathroom's pristine.
yeah.
Oops, sorry, Stephen. There we go. Can you still hear me, Stephen? Uh-oh, did I cut him off? Stephen? Did I hang up on him? By turning off my alarm?
And
I hung up on him.
I would be curious at the ideas or the thoughts of if there was some kind of repetitive, like I just mentioned, the Coaster Theater every year. And you just you get
Oh, wrong. He doesn't know he's been cut off yet.
The long-standing.
Yeah, and I've never really thought through it. I don't know if there's pros and cons,
Yeah.
but a general statement, it seems like everyone supports the things that support the arts in town.
Yeah.
So, does it make sense for us to have them doing the heads and beds and the spreadsheets and
Right.
stuff, or are we just like, this fund is good for the arts committee and
Right.
in 5 years, we'll come back and check on it, or we want to know how you spend it and maybe
Yeah.
you need to have that, but I don't know. When I saw that for the museum in Tillamook, I was like, that makes sense. I haven't really thought it through.
Only thought on that is if there is a big recessionary hit and the budget takes a big hit and you've already committed so much, I mean, does that matter? I don't know that it does, but that's the only thought I can think of.
Well, maybe it's worth a conversation with the Tillamook group
Yeah.
and see how that all works out, how long they've done it. And what, the pros and cons are of it.
Or maybe what the percentage of their budget goes to that.
He's right there.
Oh, there he is. No wonder he's not answering his phone.
I mean, and
There.
Yeah, I'd be curious what percentage of their
I hung up on you and you're here.
ideal rather than.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, what do they do if there's a crash of 08 and the budget is cut in half? I don't know if it would happen that badly, but I mean, you're right. If you just say, okay, Coaster, you're gonna get 60 grand no matter what. It's like, what if it,
Well, you'd probably just have verbiage in there that's saying based on what is collected in that
Yeah,
year,
like, it'll be this percentage or whatever. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, or maybe it's, if you talk to, I'm just using the Coaster as the example, you talk to Patrick, he's like, well, no, it's no big deal. I can fill out those forms all the time. I don't know if it saves any time or money or if it, but it would then, I would think, this is kind of what the Chambers thought of it was years ago, is if you know that it's coming, then you can plan for multi-year projects,
That's true.
and
What they've all, I mean, well, the yoga festival was asking for it from the beginning, right? Which is like, I just need to know that it's coming and we weren't able to do that. So, yeah,
yeah. And
that's interesting.
when you look at, their numbers are way skewed because it's the entire county.
Yes.
So they have, but I don't know, I just thought it was.
Yeah, no.
I like Hannah's idea of asking for the public's input because I do think, I mean, you'll get a bunch of ideas that won't pass muster with the state law, but it's like, we're not, like you said, you're living your bubble and maybe other people have other ideas.
Totally.
That's a great idea. Cool.
So then, would the thought be is that we use a portion of those dollars and the city makes an ask, or we say, here's what the city and the public have asked for, here's what the public has asked for, here's the city's price on that project. When we allocate funds, we would allocate funds for those projects at the same time, or would we do that at a later time, like now going, oh, the city has asked for trash cans, and the public has asked for trash cans, and the city said that it's gonna be $6,000 for trash cans. We want to give trash cans, or is it part of that?
I would anticipate that it would be like what we did with the bandstand thing, which is we come to this meeting, we have our asks from the normal things, and then it's like, is there anything that came up from asking the public, or the city said, bathrooms or whatever? And then we look at it all together and decide,
It's
well,
part of the regular process.
I would think, that's just me off the top of my head, because I'm just thinking of this right now, but
Because if it isn't, then we're basically ad hoc possibly funding all the time
you're right,
versus.
Yeah. right.
Lady at the
There is a lady at the door. I don't know who she is.
go around people.
Visitor center, my cell phone services.
Oh, right, it is down on.
Oh.
I already answered that.
Hey, could we get cell phone service up in Midtown? That's
I know.
great.
That was my other.
Mine's fine.
Is it?
Oh, gosh.
I go into my store and it's a dead zone.
Farmer's market. is
Yes.
Always a crapshoot.
Oh, man.
Can I take a card? Can I not take?
Well, isn't it because all the 911 stuff here?
For that.
Yeah,
Midtown.
yeah.
No, it has nothing to do with 911.
It doesn't, I've always heard that it was because of 911 and that kind of stuff around.
It seems so weird that the towers are right there.
Is that the Verizon tower?
They're all right there.
Oh, they're all on.
AT&T,
They're all.
Verizon, they're all on that one little spot right there. And we still, Midtown is this dead zone.
They're all.
T-Mobile.
Okay.
I'm gonna call Verizon. They're on my list.
Actually, I'm not bad right now. I got two.
Tractor.
Mine's 2 bars, but like at the hotel, I get plenty of service. I used to have AT&T.
I used to work in Silver, so I can navigate it.
It's actually, it's a lot cheaper than an international
Yeah.
texting, and you don't have to pay for it.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I'm happy with
Don't
Verizon.
go to click that story though.
Oh, no, no.
I really like Greg's opening comments about the dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think dashboards are an easy way for people that aren't involved in that data and that activity to digest information.
Yeah.
Without having to dig into it.
Yep.
And I don't know if you have the dashboard, but I just do like dashboard concepts. It makes it easy, and we talked about. I think we can do something better than that.
Yeah.
We were talking.
Rusty said you can do it on lunch hour.
You mentioned transparency. I think it's important for the public, for the city to know where our residents to know where the money is being spent. Because I think we probably all get those questions.
Yep.
And they can see it at a glance, where the money is being spent, and you know, who's asked for what they got, how it's being spent. At a glance, and I think that that's a great thing, and transparency is better. But and then I also think following up with asking for input, and it's something that probably hasn't been done, especially on this committee. That I think would be important. So I like where that's going. Good suggestions, Greg.
Thanks.
I wanted to bring up, we had talked a little bit about it, and in the last meeting, and we passed it about this meeting. If an organization hasn't completed a final and they're requesting funding, you know, they haven't completed the reporting as per their contract, and they're asking for more money, how do we want to address that? Do we want to be hard nosed on that? Do we not want to be hard nosed on that?
Can I ask for an example in the past of what
I don't-
being new, like where would that? Is there a scenario where that's deemed okay or not?
I don't think we've had it, I don't think it's come up until when we were looking for I think it was the Blush Lux.
That's right. Oh, it was because she'd said she'd emailed it.
Right,
Yeah,
but it just brought up
Yeah.
a possibility that could happen of an event asking for money when they hadn't
and done that.
handled reporting from their previous funding. And do we want How do we want to handle it when those types of scenarios arise?
I think that has to be taken into account for that next year. I mean, I don't know if it's like an kind of like a mental asterisk on the thing of like, I mean, here we are talking about transparency and everything out. I don't know. I would think that there's certain rules that we're asking. There might be an instance where someone's ill, or I mean, I think are there exceptions or they're not? But I would think if we have rules, there's a reason, I mean, or is there no need for that rule? I mean, I think you either have them or you don't. I don't know.
So let me add something.
Yeah, no.
So what happens with community grants often is they don't turn it in within 30 days of their event,
Okay,
but they always turn it in with their next task.
gotcha.
So and I don't know how that happens
Oh.
with TAP, but on community grants, people are horrible about finishing it right after, but they ask for funds every year. With my next year's application, I have a final every time because they know they won't get funding because that's part of the requirement.
Mhm.
If you're a previous recipient, you must include your last final. Evaluation. Oh, and side note, gallery group, was it Joe? Joe got a hold of me and he said he'd be working on the 2 that he didn't submit.
Why does he care? Because they're not asking for any money.
Yeah, but if they did again.
But they may in the future
That's right. You're
Yeah.
right.
come back to us.
That's true. I guess that makes, given what you just said about the community grants, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because they might not do it on time. So now it's not that you're not doing it, they're just not doing it on time,
Right.
which,
I mean, it's nice because on time means the information is fresh in your head. But if you choose to procrastinate and, try to do a postmortem 6 months later, so you can go and ask for funding again, it'll probably show in your final.
well, and I send out emails, don't forget, finals are due, finals are due.
Right.
And that's where I get the most of them.
Yeah, right.
And I don't read them, so I'm not sure, have they finished their project, have they not? Because people will say, well, I haven't done my project. I said, then say that. You need to put something in writing so they have something to review where you're at with it when you guys do the final exams.
Because our current thing is that they're due 30 days after the finals are.
30 days after or 30 days after the fiscal year end, whichever comes first.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I don't know why it's 30 days after the fiscal year end, because that's kind of like, why don't you just say July 31st?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like the idea of fresh data and kind of accountability. I don't know.
Why
That's
don't you
me.
give them the either or? 30 days after, or
I think that's for the ones that haven't had an event yet.
Right.
So that locks them into
Okay.
turning something
they
in.
have to turn something.
They have to turn something in.
I don't see that.
I don't know, or is it like a dinger, you don't get your 5%. I mean, I don't know. That's where my mind goes of like. All these other people gave us all the data, you didn't, they're asking for this, maybe they're getting 80%, maybe that's 70%,
A penalty of some sort.
a penalty, I don't.
Report penalty.
I don't know. I think you either have to go all in or not,
Well, I mean, I tend to be more on the strict side, like we're
Yeah.
giving away money,
Yeah, Yeah.
So if you can't, as long as
So report.
send us whatever we're asking for, assuming what we're asking for is reasonable and so forth, then, you couldn't do that in your business or your
Yes.
real world stuff. So I tend to be more, if you don't have this in, then you can't come for this, for this next round. So I tend to lean more to that strict side.
Yeah, I'm more with you.
Mhm.
I would agree with that. I mean, we're stewards of the city's money.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
It seems to make sense that if an organization can't get the reports in, that should, rather than just a little penalty.
Yeah,
You don't get any money until we see those reports.
Yeah.
Does anybody feel how would you feel otherwise?
You're not penalizing for the ask that they made, knowing that they come in and the four. They get their 4 payments. You're not saying pull money back from them. Because the 4th payment might come in after their report is due. You're saying for the next ask.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to pull any money back
Yeah,
out.
no.
Promise them that.
That's
That's not- yeah.
Yeah. I was, when I made my statement, I was thinking of next year's event.
Yeah.
Yes,
You can't come and ask for next year's money because you haven't done your,
right.
filled out the Ts and Cs of your last one.
When you put it that way, that makes a lot of sense. We are giving away money and we are the stewards of that money. Yeah. So strict.
Do we need to make a motion on
I
that
don't know. And do we need to change the wording in our
instruction?
instructions? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we tell them that they have to turn in all this list of stuff. And if they don't turn in one of those items, I mean, it's whether it's an eval or something else. You have to make that decision of what to do with that packet at that time.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the most likely what's gonna happen is you're just gonna get late, they're gonna turn in their eval, it's just gonna be late.
Well, I see what you're saying, because if their package, if there isn't a detailed budget, or there isn't a detailed marketing, we drill on that.
Yeah, if you're, no matter what you're missing, you're gonna ask for it.
Mhm.
So how do you handle that any different than you do any of the other information?
Well, I think if they didn't do the report, see, their ask is different from the report of the previous event. And we have the ability to drill them on the detail or lack of detail because they're right in front of us asking for money. But on the reporting, we don't necessarily, they're not necessarily sitting right in front of us when we're looking at the reporting. But I think what it could be as part of the ask package is, let me step back. If they're sitting in front of us and they haven't reported, it's kind of too late at that.
Yeah. So in the case of Blush Lux, they come and ask for money and it's like, but we never got a final. So you're no for this year. Is what we're saying.
And then the proof is back onto them.
Yep.
Go, yeah, we sent that in,
Right.
send it back in.
Well, but when they apply, they have to turn in their last eval with their application. That's part of their application packet.
Okay,
They have to turn it in. So all the stuff that they have to include, it's one of the checklist items is the eval for your last grant.
okay.
So that's one of the things they.
So what happened with them then? Did we not? She said she emailed it.
Yeah.
I think
last week.
it had the wrong
It's the
date on.
midterm. I think what we had was the midterm, because that was her last eval at that date.
In May?
Let me look. Because
There was some weirdness with it, or yeah, what?
I thought she didn't
Had the wrong
change the year.
date. Maybe that was it.
but
We thought she'd had only given us the 20, not the 21 or something. I thought it was-
Back to May is a long time ago.
She did a 2021 final.
What was the date?
Oh, yeah, that's what happened. She did a 2021 final and I was looking for a 21-22 final. And so
That's it.
that,
Okay.
he did include a final.
Okay, so we did have it.
You did.
It was just a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then when I'm looking for the 2021 final and I emailed her saying, this is what we have, she said, well, I think I already sent it in, I'll resend it, and then didn't resend it. But then when I looked it up later, I realized, because hers was the funky one with the dates.
Yep, okay,
And that's what's driving this conversation.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
It created us, I don't think we've ever thought about, well, what do we do with funding?
Right.
A lack of reporting on the previous. event. But if their submission package required that, under their guidelines.
That kind of takes care of it. If they're standing in front of us with asking for money with no final attached, then it's like no money.
It's one of the, and we even say, please initial to verify the following items have been included in your application submittal. And so we ask them to initial all of the things in here.
Okay,
So are we not feeling like we need to be strict on that 30-day? And the time frame of the initial follow-up?
The only time that becomes an issue is when they're asking for money. Saver was always an issue because it was in March. And so the final had to be in by the middle of April, and then we were meeting 2-3 weeks later. So that was, I think that was the only one that was an issue. Because everything else there was, even if they were late, there was enough time for them to get it in before their ask.
Okay.
Yeah, the 30 days thing seems, so much can happen, like you said, what if somebody,
Yeah,
there's a, emergency in the family, or, anything can happen.
I just,
Fresh data is
It's-
good, but yeah,
10 months down the road.
right,
Is
that's
it
different.
really real data? That's the only.
Yep.
Thing I'm struggling with. It's like reading the book and then doing the book report.
10 months later.
Good analogy.
I mean.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, this is the marketing person in me that I want the real stats and the real data, but with not crazy about it.
Yeah, I feel like if we get the final by when they ask for it, so it might, if it was late, we can be noted that it was late. In fact, I think we've got some from the chamber where it was noted that it was late.
We can dig into that. Why is this so?
Why is it late? Right.
How accurate is that?
As long as it's with the ask for the following year. Okay. That makes sense to me.
And maybe it's not but maybe it's a verbal, like, we would love to see data come in a more timely fashion too. It's important to us that it's, without a huge penalty type thing, but maybe communicate that as, I don't know.
I don't remember what happened with the chamber when all three of those ones came in late, and I don't remember what the deal was. Maybe it was after Buddy left or something. It was something that it was,
That ball
it was an obvious reason why it had been late. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the tardiness of the report and more concerned about the reports actually coming in before.
Before
we
they ask, yeah.
Before they ask and we fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like closing out the month. You gotta do one
You have to do it.
before you
Yes.
get into the other. Otherwise you never stop. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Other things that we wanted to talk about that have come up?
I noticed the sign fell over, but we're not involved in that anymore. Or did
the sign is so,
What happened to the actual sign part?
I don't know.
Because half of the, one is down, one.
And if the city did it, I imagine they would have taken the timbers with them
Yeah,
to clean up the mess.
You're talking about the north one?
yeah.
So the city hasn't taken it, but that is something I've been working with Bruce on, and so he asked me to resurrect the public art committee.
Okay.
Public art committee, and so I found the list of who used to be on it and sent it to him, so that's one of the things he's working on following up on.
But the old one, did somebody steal that?
No, it wasn't city staff, I don't know where it went,
Somebody did steal it.
I'll ask Karen.
Is it not there?
It's not there.
Yeah.
I stopped the other day to take a picture. The one time I've ever stopped to take a picture of it and it was gone.
Well, they're gonna have
I'm just curious. I want to know the answer.
it. Not gonna ask.
Didn't it come down when they were mowing over there, all that stuff?
I heard is that, yeah, when they were mowing and it cracked and went.
The city knocked it.
No, hold on.
Hold on.
Even
Knocked
better.
our cities.
And I'm wondering if it just went in the wood chipper.
Pretty sure it was Odom.
Maybe Karen does have it, I just don't realize it.
Because if you look,
You know,
it's
somehow.
not all around it, so I'm sure they did something.
I missed it some time last week.
I didn't even tell you knock it over.
Well, isn't one of the chamber projects getting the new sign going and all that?
Put that back.
They
did, that's right.
back. But they did all the legwork. You must have missed that meeting.
Yeah.
They did all the legwork on the bureaucracy of what you have to do a sign with ODOT and the state. So at least they got that much done, which is great because that's the crap you have to peel through before you actually do an RFP. And I think his RFP is ready
Yeah,
with the holes in it of where you have to fill in.
and he sent it over.
Oh, fabulous. So there's a lot of legwork done already.
Bruce reached out to Jim before he went on vacation. And so Jim said, here's where we were at, here's the information. So we've got his information over.
Great.
So there is no longer a public art committee because that project kind of went away.
Yeah. So, because it was never a city sanctioned committee to begin with, it's one of those quasi ones. And so
Yeah.
Bruce asked who used to be on it. I dug through the archives and found the list of who used to be on it. And so that was one of the things to consider, you know, how do you want to move forward? Do you want this to be a public art thing? Do you want this to, you know, which direction, who do you want, where do you want it to go? Was the conversation.
Ask who was on those, what the names were. Have it handy. I have a feeling I know whose name was on it.
I think I was actually in a spot that I was like, wow, I can't believe it's right here and I never noticed it before.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you know, people may not want to do it anymore.
I'm not.
Oh. I bet you they will want to do it again. Have their artists do it.
He may not, that might not be the route it goes. It was just kind of like seeing. Oh, it was under committee, not under that one, I think. Committee, public art group. Yeah, so I found this from 2020.
That's,
Oh, that's,
Robin, Tracy Abel, Alan Cantor, Barb Knopf, and Daryl Johnson.
oh, that's a good list.
Yeah.
So, and that was the list from 2020.
Okay. Okay.
that's fairly recent.
Sorry.
Did anybody else, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about, but and I can't remember is where it's written down, but what is the off season? And
Yeah.
do we want to
Just that?
adjust that or be
Go.
cognizant of it or leave it alone? And I don't think, like, for example, I don't know off the top of my head that we've ever provided any grants on a festival or event that goes on a 3-day weekend. But is there any verbiage that said you couldn't do it over President's Weekend because it's technically the off season? But me, I'd be like, why would we invest money to have an event on a 3-day weekend? Because we're gonna be busy anyway.
There's no verbiage to that. When Sabre started, pre-Gary, it was President's Day weekend.
Oh, okay.
And the Children's Center did it all on their own. They pulled it together. They did it 2 years on President's Day weekend. And when Gary stepped in with them and said, hey, let me take part of this over. I'm gonna move it, but I'll guarantee that you'll get your money. And then he moved it to that second weekend in March. And all the merchants were like, yeah, because they thought it was a chamber event anyway, because they think everything's a chamber
Yeah,
event.
yeah.
And so all the merchants were pissed, like, why are you doing this on a 3-day weekend? And it's like, the chamber's like, we got nothing to do with this. And so anyway, so the third year it got moved when Gary took the portion over, you know, he grew it from there and then the Children's Center went away, but then it got moved to the second weekend of March. I don't think we've ever approved anything on a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's been an ask really in those days, but it just would seem to me like being stewards of the money, it's not good to throw $35,000 to promote an event on a weekend that's already busy.
No,
Mhm.
yeah,
So I was asked last cycle about the dates and they said if I did one that wasn't on the shoulder season or the off season, would they deny me? And so the application just says priority will be given for those events within Cannon Beach during shoulder and winter's first season.
right.
Which is,
This priority.
Yeah.
Well, it's changed, right? Since this committee started, I mean,
well, it used to be, Labor Day to Memorial Day.
yeah,
And that's kind of what it, the de facto,
Yeah.
tourism world works on, but that's not it anymore.
mhm.
I mean, I personally go by October 21st, the third weekend in October.
Right.
When
When does it end for you as far as you guys concerned?
Well, it slows down the third week in October, maybe say middle of October, whatever. And picks back up around Memorial Day.
Okay,
But you have your spring breaks and you have your 3-day weekends. And that's changing too. If you just look at.
Yeah.
It, not just Cannon Beach, but the state of Oregon, if you look at the travel and the numbers that they pull and, more people are coming here in the spring than ever before. So, I don't know if it's worth us you talking about or worrying about, or it's not a problem.
always talked about it
Yeah.
for Get Lit, and we've talked about it during the tour, the cottage tour. We've always said, please move it, at least to the end of September,
Yeah.
move it.
Yeah, and
I mean,
as much, and I think the History Center is a great thing and so I'm not opposed that way, but it just seems like kind of a taking 40 grand and just throwing it into the wind.
Yep.
Or whatever the number is. I'm just pulling that off the top of my head.
Do they not want to move it because they want good weather?
That-
Which is interesting because most of the home tour stuff in Portland takes place in bad weather holiday.
don't you drive in the Oregon ones and the Portland ones?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
It
I mean, they're
depends.
getting-
It depends on cluster, but
efficient.
Trader Dreams.
yeah.
Yeah, Exchange Dreams type stuff.
Oh, yeah. But I was thinking like Ainsworth and Irvington. I mean, it depends where the layout of the houses are for that specific year. So, I mean, is there a way to put a clause in there that a non-holiday? Because
It's still not gonna change the,
not gonna change.
it's not gonna, I mean, the specific concern is probably the cottage tour at this point, because it's definitely not in the off season.
Yeah,
You know, in the old days, you could kind of say, well, September, but there's just no way. Well, like I said, I went downtown this morning, it looked like July.
yeah.
It's Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's going on, but well, it's September and it's pretty, so.
Yeah, I mean, empty nesters and people that don't have kids in school
Mhm.
have learned. There's more strollers rolling around town right now
In the,
in the fall.
Also a big cruise ship in Astoria.
yeah,
Yeah, that's,
So
that could be it.
there's a
Could be it
big
too.
cruise ship.
And there was one going south last night at sunset.
Yeah.
Cause they're switching them from Alaska to
I
Mexico.
mean, no one's ever asked during spring break. No one asked during, would you say MLK too? I mean,
I mean, that's,
it's a busy weekend for me.
it becomes stronger and stronger every year. And and I don't know about all the retailers and so forth, but yeah, like you were saying,
Weekend for me.
it just, if we are stewards of the money, does it make sense to have a little more restriction on the wins and the where? Because at that point, we're just paying for advertising for an event that,
Yeah, it's gonna be.
I can see that if we start blocking off certain weekends and adjusting the time period, and we've got 15 events, we're gonna have either events every other weekend, or we're gonna have events that want to be on the same weekend. We're gonna start really limiting when
Yeah,
they can
Yeah.
hold an event. Right?
I think we have to do it on an ad hoc basis, which we've been doing.
Yeah.
It all depend on, it's really all the cottage tour, because mostly Tracy stays out of spring break because she doesn't want to be in spring break anyway. And then that's really, once you're out of Seattle spring break, that's dead until Memorial Day. So and that's when she's trying to lay down, get lit. Wouldn't it be great if it was always on the same weekends? Maybe someday they can actually get that on the same weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, man, because I don't think there's anybody else.
Do we have anything in the last?
That higher.
Yeah.
Like has been,
was that early March this year?
no, or back
It was April.
April or early May.
Yeah.
Not a 3-day weekend.
About the same time.
Yeah, right.
The Culinary Festival was kind of around there too.
Yep.
That's on hold.
That's on
But
hold.
they were asking for that same
Yep,
time.
I think they're thinking if it happens next year, I think they said May, if I'm not mistaken. It was a while ago, but I think it was early May.
So, I mean, if we do just kind of thinking outside, take on more kind of community type projects like we were talking about before, I would imagine that the events would decrease, but be more, in quality, higher quality, bigger draw. And so some of the small side ones would go by the wayside because we only have so much budget.
So you'd get lit is when then that would be the problem.
I mean, I wouldn't personally, because I think that's a good indoor event in a wet time of year.
Yep.
So, but I just think, I kind of felt over the last couple of years, we were starting to get all kinds of requests for, and like that has no, and some we didn't fund because they, I think one was the music festival or not music, was it a movie festival?
Movie thing.
And we started to get some of those that are like, okay, now we're just getting people coming because we just have a bucket of money. And let's use that, let's spend the money, a little more wisely. And so that's where that thought goes. I don't know the answer. I agree with you. I don't like, limiting it to, you can only do these 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
That's not our business to be in.
I think the goal was to get, seed money and get some up and running, and then maybe that's where the project stuff that's the goal, right? On some,
But have we ever
who knows?
had one that,
We haven't
that,
yet,
It's flown.
and
that,
we're never gonna be self-sustaining,
Gitlin never will.
never
Yeah.
will be. So it's all about the love of that event,
Yeah.
because it's just never gonna be self-sustaining.
and
I mean, we did there was an ask that they wanted to go on some weekend, and I remember we said, I don't remember what the event was or even what the weekend was, but it was like, no. And whatever, did they move it or did it go away? We've had discussions about the weekend,
Another events weekend.
but maybe it was that and not a 3-day weekend or
It was
something.
surf stand, it was because of surf stand, I think, the surf.
couldn't get the space.
Yeah, they wouldn't give them the space when they.
That was
wanted it,
Gitlin when
so they
then.
were Moving them around and,
That was Get Lit then.
yeah.
I thought somebody had tried to do one on a 3-day weekend and it was just like, no. And maybe it was the movie lady. She was,
Yeah, that didn't go well.
no, it didn't go well. But it seemed like she was trying to do something maybe on a 3-day weekend. But I mean, we have had the discussion with people before for sure about, are you sure?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like I'm not like the cottage tour people don't know that we were reticent about.
Yeah, no. And I think we need to also keep in mind that once the old elementary school comes online,
Mhm.
that's gonna be changing a lot of things.
Yeah.
For what this fund is used for.
Yep,
So,
I agree.
Anything else anybody wants to talk about? Hannah, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Yes, I do. So just looking through the city website about the TAC. It mentions used by local nonprofit groups to promote tourism and the arts in Cannon Beach. And, as a newcomer to the group, and I have been reading the notes for years that have come from this. I don't feel that I see the connection necessarily with all these groups of nonprofits. And I'd like to see a stronger connection, either the nonprofit that's benefiting from it coming in with the applicant or submitting a letter or something, but it just really kind of bothers me that it states that in here and we're not seeing the connection so clearly. So that's how I feel about that.
what was the reason for the nonprofit? I remember Ashley came in one time and gave us,
Because I asked so many obnoxious times, because it always seemed so weird that we had this weird overlay that had to
Yeah.
be there. And so as it was described to me, if Gitlit's a bad example because they're through Toll on Arts Colony. So, I mean, they're the ones who run it. But if you come in, you have an idea for an event and you want to just produce the event with city money, you have to go out to RFP.
that's right. Yeah.
So in like Saver, because that's the one I know the best, he'd have to go caterers, not the wineries, of course, but I can't remember. There was like a list of things he'd have to go RFP out for. So that puts you 6-8 weeks out to be able to do all that crap. And they're like, we don't want them to have to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the choice. So that's why they overlaid. And of course, Rich May's original idea was, well, then all the nonprofits will stop begging businesses for money. Remember, that's how
Yeah.
that was his big pitch to the businesses. And it's like, I remember Ryan Snyder going, yeah, right. Sure, they'll stop begging us for money. So that was the issue. So it's the weird overlay, but there's a reason for the weird overlay. So.
That's what I remember now. You mentioned that.
And most of the events are actually done, like Get Lit is Tolovana Arts Colony and anything but the chamber is a nonprofit.
Sure.
There's those few like Saver, Fat Bike's done the other one. Saver the only one anymore?
Well,
There were
makeup one.
What? Say that again?
Yeah.
Yeah, the makeup.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was kind of like, when I was reading through the huge packet, I was like, yeah, this is layered and yes, it was like, who's the end recipient
Mhm.
of the nonprofit, but you're not getting feedback from the nonprofit directly in the,
Well, and the Arts and Ocean, Earth and Ocean Festival, you know, that was, I was sort of involved in that since I was on the Friends board of Haystack Rock Board. And, you know, that was a really good connection because the Friends board was a part of it. And of course, you know, it was a nonprofit already, but all of the nonprofits that were part of it were really involved and engaged in it. And I don't see that like the library is engaged with Blush Lux. And I think it's important that if, you know, folks are getting money out of this, that they have a part in it.
And that's a tough one for her because the volunteers that she needs, there isn't anybody in town to be the volunteers that she needs. Because they're very, very specific. And Gary gets his for the
Cheers for
volunteers for the checking of the, not IDs, but for the wristbands, yeah. And they've always done that, but it's always been the tough that it's like, I'd like to put on this event and bring people to town at a weird time of year, but I have to go find this awkward nonprofit
Yeah, some
to make some money.
more tenuous than others.
Yes,
And others are stronger.
yeah,
I think that, you know, the nonprofits are benefiting to a certain extent financially, but they're not at, you bring up one that's not involved, really. They let them use their charter, they get a check, basically. Is what it is.
and I think the whole idea for her is she wants the seed money to get it going so it can, I mean, I think she fully intends to eventually
She thinks-
self-supporting.
Right.
She fully intends to have it be self-supporting, probably not next year or anything like that, but she thinks she can do it if it gets set in stone that this is the thing that happens and gets word out there.
Mhm.
So anyway, I totally see what you're saying. But you're right, that's a good way to put it. Some connections are more tenuous than others.
Well, and maybe if it's not, you know, if she's not engaging with the library, maybe she needs to find some sort of event that does engage with them, you know, like I don't know, I'm sure there's makeup books or beauty books or healthcare books or whatever that relate to what the festival is that she's doing that could engage with the library in some way.
Well, there's a possibility of having a reception at the library.
Yeah.
There are ways to bring in an organization, especially that has a space, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You can combine them somehow or use them somehow. Rather than just a charter.
Yeah, and I'm supportive of the library, of course, and everything. I just want to see that connection, you know, especially since it says on the city website, local nonprofit, you know, it's like you said, it's just the charter.
I'm kind of giggling inside because I was on the children's board, the children's center board. And I remember Gary would always say, children and wine do not mix. Because
It was always, when we would get people, when we're checking people in, people would be like, wait, so we're drinking wine to support the kids? And it's like, I know.
It was like the greatest fundraiser because you literally had volunteers for one day and the children's center got $10,000.
Yep.
It was, you
Yeah.
know, you couldn't, we're like, okay.
Yeah.
But like their wine.
The parents drink.
I think I'm okay. I think we've addressed.
We have to schedule another meeting?
Yeah, so we need to schedule the March meeting to plan for next year, but because of our conversations earlier today, do you guys want to schedule a meeting in October? So, or do you want me to send out an email after I talk to Ashley so we can keep this moving forward? I'll shoot Ashley an email about, you know, can we advertise, asking the community for their feedback, and then do it and then meet to discuss it. Like what?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we get the feedback,
Okay,
the response from Ashley, and then figure out if we need to get together
okay.
and talk.
Okay.
And schedule
Sounds good to
something,
me.
and then figure it out.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me that Ashley may say, no, you can't do that, and this is why. Didn't even occur to me.
Okay, I'll ask Ashley for feedback and then I'll shoot out an email, let you guys know what she said. I'm out the rest of the week, so it'll probably be next week.
Okay.
And then Rusty and I will work on that webpage. By Rusty and I mean Rusty. Rusty will work on that webpage and I will fill it out once he sets it up.
And that web page being the dashboard.
Yes. Okay, so then what we would want to do now is schedule for the start of next year. So maybe tuning things open timeline. So we would want to meet in March. That would be our first meeting of the year. We'll elect a chair and vice chair. We'll review the forms, timelines, applications, evaluation criteria. That would be our chance to see what we want to do. If you want to make changes, are we good with it? We'll then run those by Ashley if we have any changes, and then the application packets are typically available at the beginning of April. If you want to make big changes, we may want to meet in February, so that way we can finalize it in March, if you guys wanted to make big changes, because big changes would take longer on Ashley's side.
Right.
So just kind of, little changes, she's like, yeah, great, they're good, but if it was something big, we would need to make sure we had plenty of time to.
Okay.
But I guess we'll find out after she says
Yeah, let's
whether or not we can.
see what her response is,
Okay,
and then if we get together, we can determine what the meeting schedule looks like.
Can always schedule the March meeting, and then if we have to schedule a February.
Yeah.
yeah,
That sounds.
I like that idea. Okay, so I've got March council chambers, because we're so early, it's pretty much available. I mean, there's some set things, but
So we've been meeting on Mondays. I want to not do the 6th, but go later in the month, like 13th, 20th.
when does spring break start?
Probably the 20th. I mean, I don't know, but it's probably the 20th.
20th, yeah.
So do we want to-
13th would be good.
13th works for me.
Okay, do you want to stick with 1 PM?
Portland, Oregon,
How does that work
2023
for
spring
you?
break.
Okay, got it.
So we'll wait to hear back from the attorney and then kind of decide what we do for October.
Yep,
We can decide. if we
Perfect.
should get it for February.
Yep, I think that is a great idea. And then if we need to make.
Late March.
changes, we have plenty of time. And we now have the room reserved.
Yay.
Oh, except for I put it on the wrong date. I did it on the 19th. Now,
That's a Sunday.
yeah, we're not putting it on a Sunday.
We can share that meeting. Does anybody have anything else?
All righty.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for starting the meeting.